Rajkumar Shukla, Arey, this is the same poor person who keeps coming to our master, who keeps coming to Dr. Rajendra Prasad for help, because Dr. Rajendra Prasad is a lawyer and he keeps going to him, he keeps visiting his house. Please help us, please help us. So, and Gandhiji is also with him, and the servants of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, they do not recognize, they do not know Gandhiji, and they are misunderstanding. They are thinking that Gandhiji is also one of the farmers like Rajkumar Shukla. So they have asked them to sit. They were both asked to sit on the floor and wait, and because Dr. Rajendra Prasad was not available at the moment, so they were informed that Dr. Rajendra Prasad jo hai, he's not there, he's out of town, he would come back later. So, but Gandhiji was not, and Gandhiji also observed something there, that Gandhiji was not permitted to draw water from the well. In old times, there used to be wells, and in today's modern times also, if you will go to village area, villages are very beautiful and peaceful. If you will go there, we will still find wells there. So Gandhiji was not allowed to draw water from there, because they thought that Gandhiji was an untouchable, and untouchability was a very bad practice in India, and it took a lot of efforts and hard work for Indians to get over it, to get rid of it. So Gandhiji was treated as untouchable, and he was not allowed to draw water from the well, which is really, really heartbreaking and a sad thing to happen with anyone, not only Gandhiji but with anyone. So Gandhiji decided to go first to Muzaffarpur, which was en route to Champaran, to obtain more complete information about conditions than Shukla was capable of imparting. Now obviously Shukla was giving his best. He did his best to give it all, to say it all, to convey everything that he could. But Gandhiji, he thought, I need to go to Muzaffarpur, and I need to, get more information about each and everything, each and every major minor detail. So he has then decided to go to this place called Muzaffarpur, and he accordingly sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kripalani of the Arts College in Muzaffarpur, whom he had seen at Tagore's Shantiniketan school. He had seen this person, Professor J.B. Kripalani. Where has he seen him? He has seen him at Tagore's, Rabindranath Tagore's Shantiniketan school. The train arrived at midnight. When did the train arrive? The train arrived at midnight. Midnight means 12. Okay. So 15 April 1917, Kripalani was waiting at the station with a large body of students, and this professor, he was waiting at the railway station with all his students there to receive Gandhiji, to be there for him as a gesture of respect, just like we do when when people we care about, they arrive, we go there, we are standing there, we stand there at the railway station, and we wait for them as a gesture of respect, as a gesture of respect and love. Gandhi stayed there for 2 days in the home of Professor Malkani, a teacher in a government school, and Gandhiji was staying there at this teacher Malkani, Professor Malkani's house, and he was a government teacher. And in those days, to be a government teacher was a very big thing. Today it is a very big thing too, but back then it was very respectable also, and today is also, it's a very respectable job, but that in those days it was highly more respectable. So it was an extraordinary thing in those days, and Gandhiji said, for a government employee, for a government professor to harbor a man like me in smaller localities, the Indians were afraid to show sympathy for advocates of home rule. So those who were advocating home rule, those who wanted that India will be free, those who wanted that India would be free and independent, and India would have the home rule, only Indians will rule here, those who wanted such things, those who were like this, and if any Indian is showing them sympathy or shaking hands with them or being friends with them, then it was like standing against the government, and the government didn't like such thing. So to have a guest at home, to have Gandhiji at home, it was an act of courage by this teacher, Mr. Malkani. Okay, it was a great act of courage. The news of Gandhi's advent and of the nature of his mission, spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and to Champaran. Sharecroppers from Champaran began arriving on foot and by conveyance to see their champion. Muzaffarpur lawyers called on Gandhi to brief him. They frequently represented farmers group in court. They told him about their cases and reported the size of their fee. So, everybody gathered there to meet Gandhiji, and he received a grand welcome. You can imagine that Gandhiji was being treated like a celebrity there, and all the farmers and all the lawyers wanted to meet him and tell him everything, whatever was going on there, especially the injustice that Englishmen were doing with Indians, with the sharecroppers. So Gandhi ji jo hai, he said, I have come to the conclusion that we should stop going to law courts. Taking such cases to the courts does little good. Where the farmers are so crushed and fear-stricken, law courts are useless. The real relief for them is to be free from fear. So Gandhiji said that the biggest relief for the farmers would be to get free from fear. If they stop being afraid, that is a bigger thing. If we will keep going to court and if we will keep knocking there, I don't think the court is doing any justice and the law court is doing any justice. So it's not a good idea that we keep going there again and again. Rather, we will work on that how we can make these farmers braver people with more courage, people with more confidence. Okay, so that's what Gandhiji said, and it was a really great thing that he said, because courage is the thing that keeps us free. Okay, courage keeps us free. So we should fear none but God. Indeed, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So most of the land in the Champaran district was divided into larger estates owned by Englishmen and worked by Indian tenants. So those lands, the owner of those lands were Englishmen. Okay, most of the lands in that area in Champaran, they were owned by British, they were owned by Englishmen, and the people who used to work there as tenants would be Indians. The chief commercial crop was indigo, and the main commercial crop that they were growing and they were working on was indigo. And the landlords compelled all tenants to plant 3/12 or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire harvest as rent. So this is what they were doing, that you can keep 15% and the rest of it you will have to give it to us as rent. So how unfair and how unjust this was, and clearly we can see this was done by long-term contract. And presently the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. The sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the farmers, and many signed willingly. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. The landlords hired thugs. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate farmers who had signed, and they wanted their money back. So they were tricked, and something unfair was done with them, and it was happening with all the farmers there. And when the illiterate farmers realized that they have signed something that they should never have signed, they felt really bad, and obviously they would feel bad. At this point, Gandhi arrived in Champaran, and that's when Gandhiji, the hero, the champion of the crowd, the champion of the crowd, the champion of the farmers, the hero for the farmers, the person who would do his best to bring justice, to fight, who would fight for them, was right there. So he began to try to get the facts. He was, getting the information, what is right, what is wrong. So he visited the secretary of British Landlords Association. The secretary told him that they could give no information to an outsider. We will not give any information to any outsider. This was the reply given to Gandhiji. And Gandhiji said, I'm not an outsider. I'm an Indian. This is my country. Okay, if there is anybody who is outsider here, it's you. So Gandhiji answered that he was no outsider. Next, Gandhiji called on the British official commissioner of the tribute division in which the Champaran district lay. The commissioner, Gandhiji reports, proceeded to bully me and advised me forthwith to leave tribute. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihar, the capital of Champaran. So he then went to Motihari, which was the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him, and he was accompanied by many lawyers. बहुत सारे उनके साथ lawyer भी मौजूद हैं. At the railway station, a vast multitude greeted Gandhi. He went to a house and using it as headquarters continues his investigation. And then he is living in a house there, and he is using that house as his headquarters. And the investigations are going on, still going on and on. So, and Gandhiji decided to go and see. The next morning he decided to put on out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's message overtook him and ordered him to return to Daued. Next morning Gandhiji is going to work and is sitting on an elephant because the vehicles were not very, we didn't have many vehicles there. We did not have Tata cars back then. In his carriage Gandhi compiled, but you can, if you want an elephant, if any Tata car can be compared with an elephant, is Tata Sumo, and it's a great car, one of the greatest cars ever in the history of India, one of the toughest, one of the greatest, one of the strongest, heaviest, biggest, and amazingly awesome. Gandhi complied. The messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. So Gandhiji was given an official notice that you will have to leave, you will have to go from this place, you can't live here anymore. What are you doing here? Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. And when the postman comes to you, he brings something. What do? You receive and you sign. Okay, so Gandhiji also receives and he signs, and maybe he then writes back saying that he will disobey the order. He is not going to obey the order which was given to him. It means that